Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the In All Things podcast, and I have another special guest with me today. My name is Steve Markle. I'm the pastor here at Sycamore Creek Church, and I have one of our church members with us,
Doug Retherford.
Doug Retherford.
Da-da-da.
I know, it's exciting to
I'm
have
excited.
you here. And,
I'm excited.
This is a little different because we're recording on a Sunday right after church. So I just got done preaching twice. So I'm going to rely heavily on you to do a lot of talking today.
Okay.
You good for that?
I can talk.
Okay, good. Because I'm excited for everybody to hear your story. So for this last several weeks with Mitch being out, I've kind of taken over the podcast and had different guests each week and different, stories, different views on life and different experiences. And I thought your journey of becoming a follower of Jesus would be a great story for people to hear. So we just had a great service today.
Had a great service.
I thought it was awesome. And I was all prepared mentally because it's the beginning of spring break. I'm like, I knew so many people that were traveling. And my small group meets on Sunday evening, and we canceled because so many people were out. So I was like, it's going to be a terrible crowd. And it was an awesome crowd. It
was a really good crowd. The sound was great. Worship was great. A little selfish because I do the online service. So I was watching the people with their hands raised and worshiping. And we'll actually talk about that in a second. I have a little opinion on that I'll share with you.
Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, I worship is great here. I look forward to Sunday and getting here and open up the church in the morning when nobody's here and just kicking it off.
For those people who don't know, you serve in the ministry here, and what is exactly your job?
So I actually am like the producer for the online service. So thankfully we have great volunteers who do camera work, and I'll just zoom in slowly on Steve. Watch Steve because he gets crazy sometimes, so you have to catch up to him.
Right.
It's your energy.
That's right.
And then with the worship, my mother is 3 hours away, so and she loves you and loves the church, so I just kind of naturally fit in to be able to do that.
So that job has a lot of special meaning for you.
It does.
You're thinking of your mom watching.
It does. Yeah. And the volunteers that do the camera, they hear me every week like, thank you for doing so much great work. Yeah. My mom's watching this, and hopefully other people are watching this. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I tell them all the time just how much I appreciate it. So
we're in this series in Luke, and today I preached on a passage about Martha and Mary.
Martha and Mary.
And so
Mary.
Yeah. And I ask you, which one do you see more in yourself?
I think I waffle between them both.
Which is good.
There are times when I just kind of lean in hard and I guess worship.
Yes.
But there are other times like, we do a lot of stuff in the landscaping, and I do those types of things. I did photography here for a while, and on occasion I'll still do it. Mm-hmm. And then, just doing the creative aspects of what the church needs.
Sure.
I just love doing that stuff, and what better way to serve God and to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's great. So we're going to dive in a little bit and talk about your story. But let's just introduce yourself with your family. So wife, 2 kids. Tell us a little bit about you.
So Andrea is my wife. I met her March 1st of 2009. The world slowed down a little bit when she walked by. I knew I was in trouble.
That's awesome.
I honestly had sworn off kids at that point. I was just like, I don't think I deserve kids. I don't know that the world needs another me. And she told me one day, she said, maybe you just haven't found the right person. So, I'm waited till a little bit older in my life to have kids. My daughter Lily was born February 21st, 2015. And my son was born May 15th, 2008. There's a lot of May things in our family.
Okay.
My wife's birthday is in May, Mother's Day. It's a whole lot of May stuff, and we got married in May.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, but yeah, like I am so thankful for all of them. Mm-hmm. And coming into the church in 2016, that's when I started really coming here.
Right.
And one of the first messages you had was God's spouse, children.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody. Right. And that really just it just really hit me.
Yeah.
And I really embrace that. Anybody that knows me knows that. I say that to people I don't know. I see it to people at work, whether they want to hear it or not.
Yeah. Well, I think so many people get that out of order. And now, obviously, anybody who's a follower of Christ, we would say God first. But a lot of times kids get raised above our spouse. And, the spouse is going to be there when the kids are growing. And if you don't invest in that relationship, we've talked about that in church, on the podcast, marriage retreat. I know that's been a big thing for you.
Yes.
Marriage retreats.
Huge.
Because I think that's the first time we really got to know each other.
Yes.
And you were new. And I think, well, maybe getting ahead of ourselves. With the story, but anyway, your wife was coming a little before you. So we'll get there. So you volunteer at the church, and then you also have this little job that you do, online service, but you have a career. What is it you do for your career?
So actually almost exact opposite of anything creative. I am a very binary technology risk manager. So I protect people's data pretty much.
Okay.
Now that's interesting because a lot of people that don't know me in that area, they don't understand how creative I am. So I get to be a creative problem solver with technology. So I'm definitely a tech nerd. So I'll lead you at home. Like that's good career. Good. Always been a technology person, and someone took a chance on me when I was just needed a shot. Somebody gave me a shot, and you get shots like that, you capitalize. So
that's right.
Work really hard.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Your journey to Christ. Let's talk about growing up. Church. Sure. Did you have church in your life growing up?
We did. So my mother, very hardworking woman, still is. We had a small church in a really small town I grew up in, Newton Falls. Shout out to Newton Falls.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, zip code 44444, just for those of you at home.
Cool.
Yeah. So we had a small church, and we would go. We were a little bit more than Christers. We would go very semi-regularly, I'll say, to be honest. Did Sunday school on Saturday and vocation Bible school in the summertime. And, as you're a youngin' and you start to experience loss, naturally you kind of go, okay, well, I'm losing some people here and there. And I remember specifically going to, I was Lutheran, so confirmed Lutheran. Went to the church. My mom was cleaning the church at the time. And I went into the altar, to the sanctuary, and my grandmother was sick. And I just remember going in, and as a Lutheran, you go in and you pray, you pray at the pew and do all that. And I remember praying and said, God, just please let Grandma be okay, And she wasn't. And that was the first time at a young age, I think I was 10, where I just kind of was like, what's going on? Like, I don't understand this God thing. Like, I pray and what prayer meant to me at that time. Our pastor used to give us the whole, God loves you and everything when you're sitting around the altar. Fast forward a couple years, I went through a lot of loss of life.
People that were close to you, passing away.
Totally. People that were like my grandfather, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, two of my cousins, many people I went to school with. And this is between the time I'm 8 to 15.
Okay.
So by the time I was about 16 years old, I had been to 11 funerals.
Oh.
Wow. And over half of them were people that were my age or around.
Okay.
So
that's unusual. Doesn't take away from the pain of losing a grandparent, but that's somewhat expected at some point, right?
Absolutely.
The normal progression of life. But when you start losing people that are your cousins that are near your age, and then people you're in school with, that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. It definitely didn't feel like part of the script. Just like what is going on. So I, as a youngin' and an adolescent, and I just had a little bit of animosity towards
anger, animosity toward God, or toward the church, all of it.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was going through confirmation classes when my cousin passed away.
Okay.
And I remember sitting there, and I was talking to our pastor, and I was just angry. And
were you close to your cousin?
Oh yeah, he's a brother. He's a brother of mine.
Like your brother, and his name was Michael.
His name was Michael. Yeah. Lucas has two middle names. One of them is Michael.
Okay.
So yeah. He was like my brother,
Okay.
and we were so close that I just became numb after he was
Was it a
gone.
long-term illness or just a sudden death?
It was a car accident.
Car accident.
Yeah,
Oh,
and he was musically inclined.
okay.
He was a creative person.
Right.
So it's kind of where I started to draw some of that,
Mhm.
and I started writing. I became a writer like right then,
Okay.
because I had to get it out. I was very angry, and I didn't understand, and I told God I didn't understand.
Right.
I remember being out I grew up in a small town. There's a lot of places you can go and be alone,
Yeah.
and I just remember screaming at the sky.
Did you feel like that was right or wrong, or did anybody tell you shouldn't be yelling at God, or did
I didn't really share that with anybody.
Okay, it's kind of a personal.
It was.
Okay.
It was. And then as I got older, I just kind of was like, look, you do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. It's going to
Okay.
be my way, and I'm going to show you,
Uh-huh.
which is ignorant. And we all know that.
But when you're that age, and what would you say when you're like 15 years old, you started going away from God?
I would. It was about that age.
Okay.
Within 8 months, I'd lost two cousins that were 16 and 16.
Okay.
Michael was closer to me, but Sammy was also close.
Yeah.
But Michael was the one that really did it. I mean, he was, in my life, in my view of the world, he was unstoppable.
Hmm.
And to have him just like ripped from everybody was just something that like our family, like it shook the entire foundation of our family, and some pieces never came back,
Yeah. What was so during that time, you were angry at God, but did you have a view of like God doesn't care? How did you?
I just didn't understand.
Okay.
I didn't understand at that time. And it's funny, in our small group, which is kind of like a funny thing,
Yeah.
we were talking about, we're going through Romans, and we were talking about loss and people dealing with,
Right.
children and their family and just close members. And I kind of identified with it just because while I wasn't the parent, we were just so close. Like, people that know us know how close we were. And we kind of got to the point where, fast forward a little bit, I'm kind of jumping around, but you kind of get to the point where you understand that, like, your understanding of what's happening in the world is minute, and maybe even like a grain of sand or half of a grain of sand of what God knows. God knows the end to end, everything in between. And a loss is substantial. That's like a ripple in the water of life. And you don't know what other things happen out of that.
Absolutely.
It takes. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, there's time, there's maturity, but it takes a lot out of you, right? When it happens.
It does.
It rocks you. I mean, I've been with so many people in my job, so many people that have gone through stuff like you're talking about. And it is, I mean, it's not me experiencing, but I have empathy and I feel it. And it's so much, and there's not words that just adequately can just make it all better.
Yes.
And that's where I always feel at a loss. Like, I've been with people and I'm like, God, I don't know what to say. And what I always know, for me, it's not always about what I say. It's just being there and having the love and support for people, right?
Yeah, I think you said it best. You don't have to say anything. You just have to be present. Just be present. And if that person wants to say something or they don't, like, you're just there to be there.
Yeah. There's plenty of cliches that people can throw out when people lose somebody, like, they're in a better place. And it was all part of God's plan. Well, God's plan stinks. I hate God's plan. I mean, there's times when I've said it to God, like, I don't understand this. Why is this part of your plan? I know. I mean, I've been around long enough to know it'll be maybe make sense later. I'll understand it later. And I know they're in a better place, all that. But still, I'm not in a better place right now.
Yeah. No.
And these people that I love are not in a better place. So yeah. So I mean, it doesn't make it better, but going through that.
I'll tell you, Pastor Steve, the thing that kind of got me here and consistently is, my wife and I were sitting on the front porch, and I'm a big nature guy. I love the outdoors. I love camping, being off the grid. And we were sitting on the front porch and the stars were out, and I could see this star right through the trees. And it just the weirdest, strangest thing. I'm looking at this star and I start to hear, like, you've done it your way for this long and you've gotten far. And there were some things going on at work, like just a lot of crazy kind of stuff. Andrea and I were to the point where she was getting frustrated because I was spending so much time at work. And if you're a provider in the family, or if you grew up the way I did, which was we didn't have a whole lot, and you work for every single thing you have, and you hold on to every single thing you have, you kind of lose the forest for the trees if you're not careful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just, this voice, and it was God talking to me like, look, you've gone your way and you've done okay, but I think you should do it my way. And it was like, you should do it my way now. And it just, I sat there and bawled for, 10 minutes, and Andrea's looking at me like, what's wrong with you, dude?
Right.
And I told her, and it was at like that point where we started to come to the marriage retreats. I went to a couple, and Mr. Barry Peters, shout out to you, Barry, wherever you are.
Yeah.
He was great. He was our table leader the first year, and really took so much time to invest in me. Personally, he did it to everybody, but like to me, it just felt very personal, you know, and I so appreciated what he did for me to kind of like lead me. And when he left here, he said, I want you to get into a small group. I want you to serve more. He's like, that is God's calling you to do that. And he was very intentional with what he told me to do, that he should, you know. I'll never forget those words from him. And you know, it's such a fulfilling thing when you do it. It just, I can't even, like those like watching this that haven't kind of like jumped in.
Right. It's just, well, God designed you for that.
It's just,
He shaped you for that. And there's fulfillment in fulfilling that design that he has for you. And it's been really cool to watch that journey with you. And I remember your wife, she came to church for a while without you. I don't know how long, 2 years?
It's about a year.
Okay, because I remember when she first came, she jumped into a small group, and it happened to be the one at my house.
Yeah.
And so there was this mom. She had. Do you have Lily at that point?
We were. Yeah, Lily was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
baby.
I remember her coming. So she would leave Lily probably home with you.
Yep.
And she came to our group and didn't know her that well, but I mean, remember she'd be like, "Pray for my husband," you know, that he'll come to church and with me and everything. And I've been down that road with, and it goes both ways. It seems like there's usually more women that'll come before their husbands. Men are a little bit more stubborn about that. And I was like, he's going to come. He's going to come. And it's going to get, and then I remember when you came to the marriage retreat and we were sitting, I think at the first meal across from each other. And I was like, okay, she got her husband here, so that's good. That's a step.
That's right.
And a marriage retreat is intimidating in some ways for
it was.
Men. Like, what are we going to do? Talk about our feelings with other people? I don't know about this. But anyway, it was really, it's always awesome when I see the stories of families like this where, and I always tell couples, and you would, I'm sure, say this, if you're a husband or wife and you're coming to church without your spouse, just keep going. Don't stay home because they're staying home. Go and set the example and see what'll happen. So I guess, did she come home and like talk about it to you and try to pressure you? Or
Never. She never did. She never did. She never did. And you know, we would talk about it, and I would apologize to her sometimes. Like, look, babe, I'm just not. She's like, it'll come. And I had a lot of conversations about God and the church with another member of the church. Patty, those of you around that know Patty, she is fantastic. I had very direct, open, honest conversations with her, and she was the same way. She just said, like, you don't need to do anything. Right. It will come when it comes. Right. I'm very thankful how patient and forgiving God is as well, because he already knew all the stuff I was already going to do and say and like resist and everything. Right. And, you know, it kind of like just leads to like here. So I love the marriage retreats. I look forward to that. Absolutely. During COVID when we couldn't go, Andrea and I were just so bummed out. You know, it was just that foundational thing about cutting time out of your life to be with your spouse, one-on-one, uninterrupted. It's like foundationally important.
Absolutely.
And I learned that also through the church, right? Like you kind of all know that stuff, but when it's a formula. It's just right there.
Yes,
it's just right there.
We are intentional about what we do. There's a reason because of what it builds in. Just like the things that Barry told you. He's not saying that just because, well, we need somebody to run a camera.
Right.
He's saying it because it's going to help you. It's going to help the church. And that's the whole aspect of even the Mary and Martha that we just talked about today it's for your own good.
Yeah.
It's the way we were created. And when you do it, there's fulfillment. You're part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that night when you're on your porch and God spoke to you, it's like some people, I mean, they hear something like that and they're like, is that really a thing? It was a thing.
I'm telling you what, 100%. Mm-hmm. There is no doubt it is a thing. Like I just got chills talking about it. You know, yes. I
know. And I've talked to so many people that have stories like that. And we can be in our world today cynical, and it's too easy to discount that God speaks to us. And whether you hear an audible voice or you hear something in your head and if it's something you look at and you test it with scripture and it's not something that contradicts his word, him calling you into that would be something that would make the most sense in the world. God was working, and it makes me feel emotional too, just thinking about how all the different parts work together. God used your wife and Patty and marriage retreats and people in your life that just spoke into you to the point that where you are now. And I'm sure having a daughter had an impact too. Like,
yeah.
So many people, it's like when their kids come into their life and they start to think about, like, how do I want my kids to grow up? What do I want them? Do I want my daughter and my wife to go to church without me, and I'm the dad that stays home?
Yeah, I actually love that you said that. I love that you said that, because I think as I've kind of, I don't know if I used the term right or contextually right, but like as I've matured into a better Christian in my mind, I think it starts with the husband leading the family to the church and being involved in the church and helping the church and driving the things in the church. So, you know, like even as much, like I got Easter Sunday in 2018, I got baptized.
Yes,
you know,
I remember.
It was a thing. Andrea didn't know. Nobody knew.
That's right. I kept it.
Christy and you were the only ones. I think I told Jared
about that.
Yeah,
you kept it a secret.
It was such a big deal to me. And then, you know, I shout out to Christy too, because sometimes I don't think all the way through, but I had Lily in my arms, and I wanted Andrea to baptize me,
right?
And here she is holding Lily, because I wanted Lily to be in the room, whether she remembered it or not,
right?
And Christy Johnson, God love her. I'm like, hi, can you hold my child? And she's like, yeah, sure, dude. And I'm like, so, everything that she had gone through and the previous years and still goes through today. Like, it's just one of those things I was thinking about. I think about it often.
Yeah.
I don't know if she realizes how important it was to me for Lily to be there.
Right.
So, it's just this place, this church, it's just part of the path that, like, me selfishly in my selfish little moment here, if it wasn't for the people around and how all of those things happen, again, like the end-to-end knowledge of everything, like I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. And,
I know.
We pray so many times. I pray like 5 or 6 times a day. Like, who would have anybody that knows me, like, dude.
I mean, even the first time I met you, I'm like, in 5 years or 6 years, you're going to be recording a podcast. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, and he's going to be, a part-time Sunday morning staff person for us to do. Like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But that's what God does. I mean, it's amazing. And you've often talked about the worship experience. And I know that you're in here early because on Sunday mornings, and you sit through the rehearsal. And
I do.
I glance over, and I can tell you're into it. There's certain songs that, like the final one we did today is one of, I think, our church's favorite, Speak to the Mountains.
Yeah, I can't help but give a woo.
I know, it's like there's so much energy in certain songs, but back in that day, there was a song that was one of our favorites that really impacted you. What song was that?
Oh man, I get all emotional even thinking about it.
Pass.
Yeah, let's not go there. It's you can say it.
The Great I Am, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was one. A lot of people, when that song was, I guess, a popular worship song, and it stayed popular here for a long time because of the goosebumps. It was a goosebump song.
It's so powerful. I mean, it's such a powerful song, and I'll get on Jared every once in a while and just like, hey, you should bring the song back.
Can you sneak that in?
Just bring it back. And I see it like in the playlist, and it's not in there anymore. So I'm like, oh man! But
it's that idea of us standing before the Lord one day, all of us, worshiping. It's pretty amazing.
In this, I've heard it live in other places before and seen them on YouTube before, but they are like this church just does it different. I don't know what it is. Like it's almost like you could blow the roof off with it. Just kind of praising God, like the great I am. It's so it's just something else. Like I just that's one of those ones that's on our playlist at home. It plays all the time.
You can play it forever, even if Jared doesn't do it. You can play it forever. How I think it's obvious, but like, what would you say are the biggest ways you've grown spiritually? I mean, you come to church, serving in church.
Yeah, I think the coming, habit, like it's almost like I say habit, but you make it a habit because it's good for you.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of what it is. If we're out of town, we're not at church, we'll watch it online.
Right.
But we don't miss church.
Right.
We don't miss church functions for the most part, unless we have a family thing.
Right.
I think always in my life, I've always tried to help people and, just do that type of thing. But even I do it with purpose more now because, like I want them to, if we have a conversation about some things, because I've spoken about this Sycamore Creek Church. I've spoken about you and Jared and the whole staff on work calls because I have a team of people. I've talked about all you guys. I've talked about a church. I've talked about them. Come to the service, watch it online. I do this. I even make jokes like I'm doing production. It's going to be great. Like I get some camera operators. We're going to like knock it out.
That's right.
But as much as I can even spread worship songs or spread the sermons, or I do it so much now that I don't even know that I'm doing it. Like it's kind of weird.
So you bought into the mission of the church.
Yeah.
Like and the importance of the message. And that's why it's not about Sycamore Creek Church. It's about building the kingdom of God.
It is. I think, I have a really good friend of mine. His name's Jay. We go camping out in the Alleghenies 3 times a year.
Yes.
And that's like literally like God's country.
Yes.
And we're about 25 minutes from cell phone service.
Okay.
So it's out there. But I always have like Hillsong Worship and Bethel Music and everything downloaded. Jared created a Sycamore Creek playlist for everybody. Yeah. So I have that and played a couple songs in the morning and got a little quiet. Songs are over and Jay's like, "Hey, what was it?" I'm like, "Oh, it was Hillsong Worship." He's like, "Can you play some more of that?" Yeah, I can play some more of that. Right. 6 o'clock in the morning, blasting some Christian music out in the middle of nowhere. It's awesome.
Well, you were, even before we came on, and just talking about meeting some random family at a restaurant locally and then building a relationship and inviting them to church. Like, that's just like, you got it. You understand it. You're on mission as a disciple, following Jesus, right?
Yeah. It's just come so naturally to us. The how it even started was when we're at dinner, wherever we are, we say our dinner prayer.
Right.
So we just stop and the kids all know it. They, we all do the thing. And, at the end of it, they're like, "Yeah, amen." And they stick their hands up. So we all do that. And, it just doesn't matter where we are. We do it no matter what.
Well, what you're saying too is like, I think so many people need to hear this. Like, you've learned that Christianity, following Jesus, is not a compartmentalized part of your life. It's not the Sunday morning hour. It's who you are. And it affects all that you do. It affects how you work with people, the things you say at work, the way you interact with friends, the way you interact with strangers, what you do in public, what you do in private.
100%. Yeah. And the other thing is, we were actually, ironically, funny enough, we have a prayer room. And so before service, you can sign up to pray. So I just kind of do it because I'm here. And like, why wouldn't you if you're here?
Yeah, sure.
It was just one of the things was like, beautifully flawed we are.
Yes.
And all of the things that you do to kind of like praise and that drive the kingdom. And, there are a lot of things in the world where you have, this is probably going to be controversial a little bit, but you have Christians and Christ followers who become judgmental on fellow Christ followers. And it just becomes like, gosh, I don't know why we're doing that.
Right.
We're all going towards the same mission, which is to spread the kingdom.
Yes. Stay off of social media. Sometimes it's like there's a lot of sideways energy. Like if we had the same beliefs of reaching people for Jesus. Yeah. There's going to be some differences in some doctrine, but the main thing's the main thing, and that's right. Well, let's not tear down one another.
Exactly.
We're not helping the kingdom.
We're not helping it. And, that's the other thing. So I'm going to jump back to the kids for a second.
Yeah.
Two things. Lily wants to be a worship leader and some maybe social worker, I think.
Yes.
Lucas wants to be you. So I think you heard about that the other day.
I did. That is how old is he?
He is 4.
He's 4.
He is 4.
Came in and talked to me with, I think, was your wife and Patty both?
Sorry,
Patty?
edit, because he might see this. 4.5.
4.5, Lucas. You're 4.5. We don't get that wrong.
Yes.
But yeah, and I guess Patty was telling me that he had he wants to do what I do.
Yes.
And that is like, whew.
And he understood it. Like he said,
tell people about God.
Tell people about God. Help them through difficult times. Preach the word. Like these things come out of this child's mouth. It's just crazy.
Can you imagine that? Like having your daughter want to be a worship leader and a son want to be a preacher. Like if I would have told you that 10 years ago, you're like,
what are you talking about right now?
No.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And that's just a testament of what God's done in your life and how he's working. And I think, for you, the best is yet to come. And do you feel that way? I feel like you're just getting started.
I do. I think, opportunities to talk about, anything related to how God has helped me. If it can reach one person and they go, I got it.
Yeah.
I probably get on people's nerves sometimes when I talk about it because it's kind of, I just want people to kind of get to the path of being better.
Right.
And in my view, being able to be aligned with God and understanding what Jesus did for us and the massiveness of that sacrifice, like understanding that and like nothing we will ever do, just everybody at home, nothing we will ever do will ever like compare to that.
Right.
So, you kind of spend your life as much as you can, and we all get distracted with things. By the way, this is not a Doug is perfect thing. I don't want that to come across.
No, not at all.
You strive to be better every day, and you strive to, raise his name as much as possible. Even when I pray, like I pray by myself. I get up really early every morning.
Right.
I pray a lot. I pray quietly. I pray out loud.
Sure.
And I get distracted because
I'll
be like, oh, squirrel,
right.
But I really try to focus back. I thank God every day, every single day for my wife and my children. I add some adjectives in between them all the time.
Yeah.
I thank him for me being able to be up and upright and look for opportunities to spread the word and just be a better follower.
Yeah.
Those are the things that, like, foundationally, those are what I do at least twice a day. And again, like your point, I never ever would have thought
well, that's what God does. And I'm so thankful that he's brought your family here and you're a part of what we are and who we are. And what excites you about Sycamore Creek for the future? Like, what do you see for our church? I mean, I like to ask, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that, but just random church members that are involved like you, how do you feel about the church going forward into the future?
The future's bright. I love the kids, man. It feels like there are so many fresh faces coming in and out of the doors.
Yes.
The things that, like the taco thing, the truck thing that I missed last summer.
Yes.
I was camping with Jay.
Yeah.
I came home too late to come to it, but we had the carnival thing, which was great. So many people I didn't recognize. Those things that you do for communities, they tend to bring people in. And we were praying down this morning, and I was like, if we just have one person that like sees the service or randomly comes in and sits down and listens, and they get a connection somehow, it just kind of like mimics how my journey was.
Yes.
I don't think I'm that unique in having those kinds of things happen. It's just a matter of being able to pay attention to them.
Yes.
But the growth of the church is so cool. Like being upstairs and doing the production, I peek out and I'll see like full chairs, it's so awesome. I think, again, being a selfish person, both of my children being here, we look forward to having them come. They look forward to being here. Sometimes they want to stay for both services so they can hang out with their friends and do the crafts and,
Right.
you know, hang out with the volunteers that are doing all the good work, and Miss Amy in the back. You know,
Yeah.
it just,
Yeah.
the growth of me being here since 2016 and being in the one,
Mhm.
I can only equate it to how like the first round of Sycamore Creek was, and then
Sure. Going through the building
Yes.
program and expansion,
Yes.
seeing that, and the like you speak about kids ministry, and you know, we're growing as a church, but the kids ministry has grown tremendously. We've had some of our largest numbers of kids, and the preschool rooms are just packed. And so we just built, and we're trying to figure out what to do to alleviate some of the stress in those rooms because it's already filling up. So good problems to have.
those are good problems.
And we're thankful for that, and God's doing great work. Anything else that you wanted to share before we close?
I don't. Kind of randomly thinking. I don't think so.
Okay.
I would say I think I'm going to shout out to my mother real quick.
Mhm.
My mother's 3 hours away, as I mentioned earlier.
I'm sure she's watching when it
she
comes out. Yeah.
she definitely is pretty dedicated.
Mhm.
But she is she was Catholic and then Lutheran,
Mhm.
going through all those sort of
Yes.
very traditional.
Yes.
It took her a while to kind of get acclimated to how the Sycamore Creek church does
Yes.
things. But, you know, once she got in the music, the music is a thing for some people. It's
Sure.
kind of interesting. This is the random thing I'll close with.
Yes.
You know, you said this once years ago, and it has stuck with me, and this is why I do it now. People that go to concerts, you know, they'll go to concerts and they'll like clap and woo and
Right.
woohoo and whistle and like, you
Right.
know,
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff and jump up and down with their hands and everything.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you're gonna idolize this musician, which is cool,
Right.
but when you do the same thing for God, shouldn't?
Right.
What do you think about that? And you said it one day, and I was like, oh man, that's so good.
Yeah.
So even randomly at my house, I would just be like, you know, and I think it's you kind of get over yourself at
Mhm.
some point because it's the reverence that you have for the Lord, you know.
Yeah, that's so good. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know that I grew up that way too, like very traditional and
Yeah.
all that. But it's like I don't look at worship in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, David dancing before the Lord and all the instruments that they had.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like those churches are. Not that that's wrong.
No.
Everybody can worship God in their way.
100%.
But I do believe that there should be joy in our hearts. And I love when I hear people shout like this morning during that one song. It's like, it's just enthusiasm, not a show at all. It's about
No.
worshiping
Yeah.
God and
Yeah.
thanking Him for all He's done for us. So I think that's a great way to end. And
Yeah.
And I thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for
with
having
us.
me.
And
This was great.
if you're listening and this discussion, really hit home with you, and reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. I know Doug would talk to you, and if
100%.
there's anything, because I know you hear from me and Mitch a lot, and people in church staff, but I think it's great to hear from somebody who works a regular job and is involved in our church and has had their life change here. And so, God works in all different kinds of ways, and He may be speaking to you on your front porch looking into the night one night, just like He spoke to Doug.
That's
and
right.
He might say something to you about, give me another chance, like He said to Doug, and, just say yes to God. And I think there's a message there. And so we are here for you. We love you. And if you have any things you'd like us to talk about on a future podcast, please email us, podcast@sycamorecreek.org. And look forward to having Mitch back in a few weeks. But I got one more, I think, coming up next week with another special guest. But it's been a joy to talk to you, Doug. And thank you for being with us. And thank you all for watching to another episode of the In All Things podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamorecreek.org, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.